Welcome to the Veterans Who Build show. Today's guest, we have a U.S. Navy veteran who served on an aircraft carrier, has lots of awesome stories and experiences through his military career. After his military service, he started his civilian profession in the tech space, growing many of the original construction tech platforms. And today he is the founder and CEO of Pixley, a construction tech platform. I'm excited for y'all to hear his story and experiences and advice. Quick shout out to our subscribers. Thank you. Our listeners, thank you as well. A reminder to please subscribe to our channels. It really helps grow our reach. If you just hit that follow, hit a like, hit a review on any of our channels, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Really appreciate it if you can. This is going to be the last episode of the year of 2024. Between this episode's release and our next episode, which will be in mid-January, we will be issuing shorts, reels of earlier episodes, especially, for those who haven't seen them yet. Hopefully you'll catch on and have a listen. Lots of awesome stories and people who have been on so far. Thanks so much. It's been a really awesome year, and I appreciate you all for listening to our podcast, to our veterans. Last but not least, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Jet.Build. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Lee Mills. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Lee, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and delighted.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to dive in to hear your story. Before we kick it off, where are you calling in from? Where's home base?
I'm calling in from Encinitas, which is North County beach town in San Diego, and my startup garage. As you can tell, it's not a Zoom background.
Yeah. For those of you that are watching on video on YouTube, I really encourage Lee to keep the background as it is, particularly because of where he's located. He's got to show off. Got to show off the surfboards, the bikes. It's an awesome garage, man. I'm envious of it. I'll live vicariously through you.
Well, come visit. I got 2 bikes. We can go ride together.
Awesome, man. That sounds great. Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. All right, so we'll kick off with your formal introduction, Lee. Lee Mills served for 4 years of active duty in the U.S. Navy aboard the USS Constellation CV-64 aircraft carrier. During Lee's service, the aircraft carrier entered an extensive life extension program that entailed significant construction. Today, Lee is the CEO and co-founder of Pixley, a B2B SaaS platform that makes it easy for building owners, construction and insurance professionals, and more to document, share, and collaborate on project photos and videos with the power of data and AI. Lee has over 20 years of experience building teams, scaling startups, construction, property tech, and much more. For example, Lee was the first VP of Raykin, where he achieved 1 million in ARR. Last but certainly not least, Lee is a father to a daughter and a rescue dog, avid surfer, and outdoor enthusiast. Lee, I'm very excited to hear about the nitty-gritty of how you got to where you're at today. As we spoke about, and as the audience knows, we like to start with childhood. So talk to us about where you grew up and, what your childhood was like and what led you to your service.
Sure. Yeah. I'm originally from New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, not the MTV Jersey Shore, the nice Jersey Shore. My parents were New Yorkers. My dad commuted to New York every day. So he was gone when we woke up and gone when we went to bed. But I had a very nice childhood in New Jersey, born in Little Silver, Asbury Park, Red Bank. And then when I was 10, we moved to South Bend, Indiana, which was a great place to grow up, but a shocking contrast to the Jersey Shore. I had a great childhood there, played lots of sports, learned how to play golf, played lots of soccer, tennis, was not allowed to play football, unfortunately. But had a great childhood there, went to Holy Cross for a year, and then I decided to join the Navy. I did that for a couple reasons. Every man in my family has served in the military, mostly the Army. But my favorite uncle was in the Navy. My dad and his twin brother are veterans of the Korean War. And my uncle, one of my favorite relatives, was actually in World War II. And then he further served in the CIA. So for some reason, I was enamored with the Navy. and I wanted to see the world. So I joined the Navy, did boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, and I would not be here without it for many, many, many reasons. Helped me become a man, be responsible, and have a lot of self-discipline, and all that parlays into what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur when everything is on you. I went to A school for supply and was stationed on the ship, the USS Constellation, CB-64, America's flagship, who, unbeknownst to me, had just started a service life extension program, which is basically a massive construction project. So an aircraft carrier are the largest ships in the world. So imagine rebuilding an aircraft carrier in dry dock. It was chaos. And because I knew how to use a computer, I was able to basically assist with the project management, rehabilitating all these different spaces. And every space in a ship, they don't wait for things to break. Everything has a planned preventative maintenance schedule. So I became a damage control petty officer through that program, and for the whole time I was on the ship. And then I volunteered for everything I could. So I was a morale, welfare, rec guy. I was a PT coordinator. I did everything I could to capitalize on my time. It was awesome. Sailed the ship from San Diego back to its home port in San Diego, and spent a lot of time out to sea, which was awesome too. But 4 years was enough for me. And so after 4 years, I got it back to duty. And I was riding a motorcycle just like the one behind me in San Diego, trying to decide what I was going to do next. My TAP class was less than outstanding. In fact, it was a horrible experience. And they didn't give me any guidance. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And my dad was a creative director. I always enjoyed drawing and painting and doing art. So I decided to go to design school. So I went to school.
Lee, before we I'm sorry to cut you off there. Before we, get out of military, I want to take a few steps back. One is, in childhood, out of curiosity with, all your family members having served, did they talk to you about their experiences, especially your uncle that was in World War II?
My uncle did. My dad did not.
Hmm.
Very little. I think it was, he didn't like to talk about it. I mean, he was a proud veteran, but he did not go into any great detail at any time. He was shocked that I decided to actually join the Navy.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, we had really talked about, and it's kind of funny. My mom jokingly calls me Skipper because I've always done whatever I wanted to do. And so for her, it seemed like a natural fit, but my dad was surprised. They talked about it, but not in great detail. I think it was probably one of the hardest things my dad ever went through. And that's probably why I didn't talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always like to ask that question with past generations, and if they spoke about their service, because usually that's the answer, is what you just gave. So it's always interesting to me to hear if someone in particular did speak about their service. Yeah. Did peers like from high school also join the military, or were you the only one?
Two of my best friends also joined the Navy, which is actually an incredible story. One of my good friends, Dan McDonald, we were actually sailing off the coast of Hawaii, and I'm on a ship with like 5,000 guys, right? And I'm walking down the hangar bay, and this guy grabs my arm. I turn around shocked, and it was my best friend from high school. I'm like, and he was attached to a squadron. So I'm like, what are the chances of running into one of your best friends from high school? This is pre-internet, right?
Right.
On the same ship in the middle of the ocean. So that was really
That is awesome. So talk to us a little bit about experiencing specifically enlisting and boot camp until you get to your unit, to your team.
Oh, that's a great question. So it's a great question. So yeah, I was determined to join the Navy. I did talk to the Marine Corps. I did talk to the Air Force. I did talk to the Army, but Navy seemed like the path for me. And so I signed up, and I was excited to do it. I did do a delayed entry program, but boot camp was in November. If I were to go back in time, I would not do boot camp in Illinois in November, maybe in San Diego. But I didn't have a choice on where I did boot camp. But yeah, I enlisted. I was super excited about it and proud about it, and prepared for it. I didn't have ambitions to become a Navy SEAL or anything like that, but I did want to capitalize and do everything I could to make the most out of my 4 years and my experience there, which I have. And we'll get into that later on today and how it applies to what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
It was hard. This is like, it was, I can't say it's easy now. I would think it's maybe a little bit easier now, but back then it was hard. But I needed it. I liked it, and I thrived in it.
Hmm. Yeah. And, during your service itself, anything, in particular come to mind in terms of, uh, you know, experiences stuck with you, stay with you till today?
Yeah, there's a few. The Navy, I mean, there's quite a few. I'm not sure which ones I could talk about or not. The Navy has a ritual when you go over the equator. You go from being you become a shellback, and that's a major initiation and ritual that nobody would anybody that's been through it would never ever ever forget. But it's hazing, but at its finest. And I think hazing has a place, and they should keep continue to do it. Hopefully, they still do. I got
Hmm.
hazed hard, deservedly so.
Sure. Yeah. It's a part of the journey.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. What was the longest stretch of time that you were on the water on the ship?
Without seeing land, probably
Yeah.
2.5, maybe 3 months.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. How does that feel like once you get on land after 3 months of being on sea?
Well, you're just programmed for it. So, I mean, I lived on the ship. So
Right.
even when we weren't out to sea, I slept on the ship every night. But when you're out to sea, there's systems and there's plans of the day, and everybody's operating like nonstop, and you don't get a lot of sleep, but you're so busy that you don't have a lot of time to be missing
Mm.
home or anything else. I mean, mail. This was again pre-internet, so I
Right.
mean, the biggest, most important day is like mail call. Like hopefully you're getting a letter from your family or your girlfriend. But you're
And
so busy. Like, I mean, when you do see land after you've been out to sea for the first couple times, you see land, you're like hallelujah. And it's not like you get off the boat or the ship and kiss land, but you're certainly glad to see it and
right.
be able to stretch your legs. But every day we'd wake up and I'd run around and do laps on the flight deck, and we had a gym. And I mean, it's a hard life, but it was awesome. It was great. I mean, in
Yeah.
fact, I oftentimes reflect if I could go back in time, I would have stayed in the reserves.
Mm. So in that construction project and the life extension, anything come to mind in terms of particular construction on the ship that was I don't know unique to that experience?
Well, shipboard construction is definitely very different than building a hospital or an office park or a planned retirement community or anything like that, because there's hazardous conditions, there's hatches, there's fuel, there's asbestos, there's like tons of things you have to be very, very careful and cautious about. But the thing about the Navy, and I'm sure this goes for all the services, is that there's a plan and there's a system and there's a process. There's a right way, the wrong way, the Navy way, but there's a certain way you do things. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's just the way you do it. And if you follow all those things, then things go smoothly. If you don't, or you
Mm.
fall off track, then that's when things go sideways. So just follow the plan. If you can improve it, great, but just follow the plan and always have a plan
Mm.
and a
Yeah, I
schedule.
can't imagine. Right, and a schedule. Yeah,
Like
I can't
construction,
imagine what
it's
that's
very
like.
much like construction.
Right, 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 right. Awesome. So, I'm guessing around 3 or 3.5 year mark, you're thinking of, finishing your service. What does that time frame look like?
When I decided to get out,
Yeah.
well, I romanticized about staying in. I was promised shore duty in Hawaii, and they promise you the moon when you're just about to get out because they want you to stay.
Right.
But I didn't have any preconceived notions about like a 20-year career. Although looking back, I mean, I'd have a nice retirement pay if I stayed. It's just really hard to be out to sea all the time. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's it's hard on your relationships. It's hard on your family. It's very hard if you have a girlfriend or want to start a family or have a family. And I used it as a stepping stone to build the self-discipline I needed to be successful in the outside world.
Hmm. So, what's that process? What was that process like for you? Finishing service.
I mean, it's emotional, right? So like it's really hard to when you leave the military, you're on your own. Like it's like one of the hardest, loneliest things I ever did. And we didn't have our TAPS class was basically a bunch of guys yelling at us to go home and leave San Diego. That was it. With a binder of forms for the BA. No help, no assistance, not where to go to school, not where to get student loans, not like what could be a potential next career path for you. Literally, they're like, get the F out of San Diego and go home. And here's a book. That's pretty much what it was. So I had to figure out everything on my own the hard way. It took me a long time to pay off student loans. I did have advice and guidance from guys in my family, some other people, but the overall transition was brutal. So I had to work full time while I was going to school full time in order to pay my rent. So I worked 40 hours a week as a telemarketer, selling selling AOL access to the internet, which was brutal. But that's how I became really good at sales, because you could tell me no all day. It doesn't bother me at all. In fact, tell me no so I can move closer to a next, which also serves me well in business. But to be able to go to school full time and work full time left little time for anything else, but that's okay. I was able to do it. And then as soon as I graduated, I jumped into the world of tech. And that was my plan, is get into the world of tech. And this is the very, very beginning of the .com world.
Right. I was going to say, you said it in terms of that sales job, the telemarketer job. I was going to say, I mean, no doubt that that's helped you long term. Granted, I'm sure that wasn't fun in the moment. Long term support though for all of your endeavors. So that's cool, at least to look at that in hindsight and realize its value. So in that whole process, yeah.
If I didn't close deals, I wasn't going to get paid. And so
right.
I had nothing. I had a lot of pride in being like self-made, and I didn't want to ever ask anybody for help, and I didn't. So I made those sales, and then I became really good at it. And then I became a sales trainer. Then I became a sales manager. And then over the course of 3 years, I had 200 sales reps and full P&L for a really large telemarketing company. So I learned a lot about management and recruiting and hiring and training, and unfortunately having to fire, but not after giving everybody every possible chance to improve themselves and give them all the help they needed to try and be successful. Just either you're cut out for sales or not. There's usually not a middle ground.
Right. That's amazing, man. And in school, what were you studying? What was your degree?
Advertising and business marketing.
So when you finish that, I'm guessing 3-4 years. Yeah. So when you finish that around that time frame, and even up until now, looking in hindsight, what kind of advice would you give your younger self on that transition period, military to civilian life?
Oh man, what kind of advice would I give myself? Don't be so hard on yourself. I'm brutally hard on myself. I think I try not to look back with any regret. Everything that happened was supposed to happen. That's why it happened. If I go back and change one thing, I might not be here right now. So I'm okay with the way everything played out, and I made the best decisions I could with the information and knowledge I had at that time. And I'm blessed. Like I have my whole mindset is I'm blessed and grateful any day I can wake up and put my feet on the ground and I don't have dirt on my face.
Yeah. Well said, man. That's amazing. I absolutely agree, is not being too hard on yourself. In that experience, recognizing that's a huge shift in transition of just objectively, right, military to civilian, but then also a shift in kind of identity of who you are. So in not being so hard on yourself, that's will alleviate a lot, and allowing yourself to ease into the next phase of life. So yeah, I agree. Well said. So when did you start getting involved in construction, built environment?
Great question. Going on about 10 years ago. So I've done a lot of stuff in B2B SaaS and B2B SaaS and consumer stuff. I've launched, not to age myself, but I launched first Olympus digital cameras on the internet. That was my first consulting client that turned into my first marketing agency. And after several startups in different categories, a friend of mine was the first co-founder for Raycon. And he's like, hey, check this out. And he and I worked together for 5 years at a previous startup that was a Yelp competitor, and had a lot of success, a lot of fun doing that. And he's like, hey, I got this new startup. It's called Raycon, and we do construction daily reports. You want to help us out? And I was kind of like, it was never on my radar. I was like, sounds interesting. Let me check it out. And so they had created what was in essence a really smart PDF. So superintendents, if you're listening, are supposed to do a daily report every day. But back then they didn't, because either they had to write it down in pen and paper or Excel or Word, or they wait till the end of the week. And so Raycon basically created a super simple, easy to use app, and they're having early success. And I started setting up their campaigns on Google AdWords and Meta, and setting up some influencer content creation. And I started listening in on the demos with the sales reps. And that's when I had the aha moment. I'm like, these are my people. Like construction people they're proud Americans. They're proud of their projects. They're super direct, which is refreshing. compared to other industries. They'll just call it like they see it, which is great. They answer their phone, and most importantly, they need help. So what rang out to me through this early initiation in the construction tech is like, these superintendents and project managers are just like my dad. They're getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're traveling to job sites. They miss out on their kids in the morning, and they come home at night and their kids are in bed. And then they have all this stress about documentation, and they were supposed to do the daily reports, but it's a pain in the ass when they're on the job site all day. So that's when I had the aha moment. That's like, this is the industry. These are the people I want to help, and it's a huge opportunity. And so yeah, I jumped in feet first, and I built the strategy and the plan, and I hired the first 2 BDRs and the first 2 account executives, and started working on partnerships with Procore and PlanGrid and Trimble and others, and that led to me joining PlanGrid. So I know what it's like to work for startups that have no marketing budget and growth hack your way, to what it's like to work for a Sequoia-backed, VC-backed, .com construction tech startup darling. And then after PlanGrid, I was recruited to be the fractional CMO for QPix that does 360 reality capture. They were just entering North America from Korea. So they hired me to build their strategy, their plan. How do you message personas, right? You message a building owner differently than an architect, different than a superintendent, different than a PM, and all that stuff. So I had great success, launched them at Autodesk. And then they wanted me to be their VP of sales and marketing, but we couldn't agree on what that would look like. And I wasn't going to do it for a penny less than what I offered, because it's a very hard job. And that's the same time the iPhone came out with the LiDAR camera. So I love the 360 reality capture space. It's fantastic. However, they all require hardware. They all require extensive training. None of them are easy to use. They're not fast. They're not instant. They're not really built for the field. So that's why I came up with the idea and started to build and create what Pixley is today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And out of curiosity, did you do anything in childhood that was like involved in built environment?
Not so much the built environment. However, my mom was an entrepreneur. So when we moved to Indiana, she had a store called the Elegant Peddler, and she sold art and furniture and like fine home accessories. That turned into 3 stores. And so many a weekend and many a holiday, I would be helping her at these stores. I also, my parents made me a promise as a teenager that if I saved up enough money to buy a car, they'd match whatever that was. So I worked every chance I could, raking leaves, shoveling lots of snow, walking dogs, whatever, so I could have that car as soon as I turned 16. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. And then my parents owned at one time several properties in Florida, rental properties, and they got screwed over more times than they can count with tenant improvements and people moving in and out. So that, and plus they bought and flipped some homes. So that's the most part of my experience with it.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like some, light exposure, I'll call it, through your parents. Really cool. So moving forward from childhood, in the experience of being on the ship that you served on in the Navy, and somewhat managing, the project, did that kind of play into your understanding of industry when you entered into the sales process, starting at Raykin, I guess?
Sure, totally. Well, I've built sales teams before, and there is I have a playbook, a proven playbook for launching B2B SaaS companies. But just like launching a B2B SaaS company into building a house or a hospital or a church or a synagogue or whatever, there has to be a plan. And the Navy ingrains upon you, especially as a damage control petty officer, every single hatch, door, bolt, light switch, seal, everything has a PMS schedule. And so that's just like been ingrained on me. Like one of my motorcycles behind me has its own PMS schedule. And I actually use Pixley to document every time I do maintenance to it. And I have another bike that I took apart and rebuilt during COVID. And I use Pixley, it's not the main use case, but to document taking it apart, where every part went. So when it's time to put it back together, I wasn't left with any surprises or any extra nuts or bolts.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So, I was asking because, first of all, I wanted your take on, how service translated into the built environment, which you just answered in an amazing way, where it's really so similar in terms of what you're doing, managing that extension project. But then I was also curious if you happen to have had like childhood experience, just from, your understanding of, selling the product that's supporting, industry folks in the field. That's really cool, man. So,
Thank you.
you started building Pixley rather when that last job offer you were talking about didn't end up closing.
Yeah, well, I saw even during that engagement, and it was a great engagement, and they have got a great product. Don't get me wrong. I saw the need. I have visited hundreds of job sites for Raken, for PlanGrid, for Cupix, everything from home remodels to new homes to spent a lot of time at a hospital build for Raken. And I know without any doubt, if you build something that's not easy to use, you got one or two chances, and the guys in the field will never touch it again. It doesn't matter how many tacos or beers you buy them; they are over it because they don't have a minute to spare. So we went to great lengths, and I mean great lengths to mock it all out and what it would look like and the flow and the UX before we wrote any code or designed any actual screens. Yeah, it's got to be built for the field first. I mean, that's where 90+% of job costs are, and that's the biggest problem, the biggest area we see of opportunities to help the guys in the field. Just save time documenting and collaborating. We stop the chaos of texting and emailing stuff back and forth, whether you have Procore or Autodesk, whatever. People are still texting stuff back and forth all day. And then a dispute could happen today, or as you know, tomorrow, or it could happen 9 years from now. And then good luck trying to find a photo or video 9 years ago on your phone, mixed with all your baby photos and motorcycle photos or whatever else you got going on.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point, it's just not even going to be there at that kind of range of time, right? I mean, everything's overloaded with data and information. Yeah, I totally agree. And, I also want to just give a shout out to the guys and girls in the field, because I feel, they get a lot of flack for when things go wrong and for, the end user of whatever that property is. But the end user is also not, doing the dirty work per se, the manual labor, which is why they're not inclined to, they meaning field operators are not inclined to, be on their phone or on a computer, et cetera, is because they're literally doing manual labor. So I 100% agree with you in terms of ease of use is so important.
Yep, absolutely.
So talk to us a little bit about the Pixley journey where you're at today.
Sure. So we came up with the idea the summer of 2019 is when it started percolating. We incorporated December 2019. I raised enough capital from friends and family to build our MVP, or minimum viable product, and some early marketing, basically a website and a few things. And then COVID happened. So nobody knew COVID was going to happen. That slowed us down considerably, especially the sales cycle. So I was trying to get my initial focus was on the ENR 400, and we had some successful pilot projects with some of those guys. And then fast forward, I burned through that capital before we were able to generate revenue, and so I've been self-funding the company. And then to bring this thing full circle, and one of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you guys today is in November 2022, I was invited to present at the Military Influencer Conference. Are you familiar with the MIC?
I am, but explain it for listeners who are not.
Yeah, so the Military Influencer Conference, I highly recommend it. It's a huge conference. It's got all types of veterans from every service that are telling inspiring stories, how to start a business, how to brand a business, how to grow a business, showcasing veteran-owned businesses. It's awesome. And I'd been unaware of it. If I had known about it, I would have gone to it a long time ago. But I was invited because there's a venture capital fund called the Veteran Fund that only invests in veterans. And they had a pitch competition at MIC. So I was one of over 100 to apply. I made it to the first round, the second round, the third round, and the final round. 5 of us pitched live at this conference, which was awesome. I'd also say one major piece of advice to anybody listening: if you don't like public speaking, go to Toastmasters and learn how to get comfortable with public speaking. It has served me incredibly, incredibly well. So long story short, I won that pitch competition. That
Congrats,
was
man. That's awesome.
October 2022. That turned into a safe note. I took all that money, reinvested into the platform, updated it. It's now available on iOS and Android. There's also a desktop version for people back in the office. One of the things we want to do is reduce, if not eliminate, unnecessary travel to job sites when you can do everything from your phone or your computer. And fast forward to today, we've got over 3,000 users, 25 customers, 483 paid users. We're used on a wide array of projects. One is a 10-year hospital expansion project in San Diego with Sharp Hospital. So they use us from the time they're pushing dirt all the way through the completion. They also use us for facilities. We have our first enterprise customer, which is a company called Kitchen Saver, Bath Saver. They do 600 kitchen and bathroom models a week, and we save them 45 minutes a day per project.
Amazing. That's
So
awesome.
whether you're modeling a kitchen or building a hospital or whatever, you have to document pre-existing conditions, right? And then progress every single day. So for Kitchen Saver, we automatically sync back to their CRM. We save them a ton of time. And then we're also being used, I'm excited, on USC LA Coliseum is using us for future construction and also for daily facility maintenance. And we'll be there for the Olympics next time. And then Deepak Chopra is using us on a 4-year project in Utah where he's building an amazing retreat center, basically, and same problems. So the owner will release his payment when there's milestones. And the contractor may say they accomplished a milestone, but in reality, they did not. So the owners love us because we validate and help contractors prove that work's done. Contractors love us because they prove that work is done so they can get paid and reduce all the chaos between the whole ecosystem of owners, GCs, subs, and everybody else.
Yeah. First of all, that's amazing. Congratulations, starting from winning that pitch competition all the way through to the pipeline that you've created. That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see those projects get finished. I mean, those sound really cool. That said, the last piece that you mentioned there, I think is really interesting in terms of just general macro shift in environment for built environment, generally speaking, where you have, the chaos between all the different stakeholders involved. Then you also have the lack of transparency, traditionally so because technology didn't really, exist yet, at least not to the extent that it does today. And, you're bringing up this example where, from your phone, you have the ability now to document in depth and detail on a daily basis for transparency to therefore exist across stakeholders, and payments to transact in a manner that will, I hope, reduce litigation, generally speaking, because again, transparency and clarity around milestones exist. So that's really cool. I like that, general thought processes, shift in dynamic of how jobs are functioning.
Yeah, I mean, the real value prop is save time, save money, improve documentation, streamline collaboration, stop the chaos of text and email and folders. But ultimately, CYA, everybody knows what that acronym is, and reduce disputes, because 30% of projects have disputes. And it could be you hired somebody to remodel your kitchen, and it's the wrong eggshell color white. That's horrible. Or they could have laid the foundation for a hospital 15 yards off center. Or, I mean, as much as anybody, how things can go sideways quickly, especially also blueprints aren't delivered to the field quickly enough. And there's rework, right? So there's use cases.
Totally. It's really this dynamic of translating either words, right, like on a computer, on plans, on specs, whatever, or verbal words into, literal finish items, literal construction. And that's where the difficulty lies, right? I mean, people are expecting that their words are going to translate in their mind through, the construction site in those people's minds. And that's what technology can support, exactly as you said it, right? Streamlining processes and clarity, transparency across all these channels. So yeah, it's an interesting shift that will continue to improve, undoubtedly so. So you mentioned a few, as we've been discussing, translatable skills, military to profession. But I want to give you kind of the opportunity right now to plug in, specific ones that come to mind, and you could, of course, repeat what you had said.
Well, some of it's skill, some of it's mindset, some of it's just like heart and soul. So have a plan. I don't do anything without a plan, and that plan might change, but I have a plan, whether it's for software features or raising capital or getting customers or whatever I'm doing. I have a plan. That was ingrained upon me going back to the Navy. Grit is something you're not necessarily taught, but that's something we all learn. Like, you have to get it done. Whatever your job or your mission is, you have to get it done. Failure's not an option. And that's kind of like my mindset. So planning, grit, my mindset, I'm just like always positive and optimistic, and the glass is half full. kind of person. Every day is truly a gift. Like we have in the reality of things, we have like no problems. And the big
Agreed. Yeah.
screens. And then just constantly trying to improve myself, whether it's through reading or meditation or whatever I can do. I know a lot. I don't know it all. I do try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me or people that have done it before. And I'm always open to advice or criticism or how to do things differently. You have to have tough skin. Don't take things personally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well said, man. I want to also include, you know, you had touched on before, it's not a skill, but it is a translatable culture, I'll call it, right? When you spoke about starting with Raken and being on job sites and seeing how construction teams operate and realizing, oh, here's your people, right? And it's amazing how time and time again, you know, we hear veterans talk about their experience in the built environment in general and how good of a, you know, translation it is into professional life, civilian life. And you said it in a great way where you mentioned, you know, people are straightforward, down to earth, you know, patriots, love America. You said a few other characteristics, but I agree with all of them. And I think it's important to highlight that. And it's a part of, you know, what we're trying to highlight here.
Yeah. It's different than any other industry. Like I was part of a really big, massive software company that sold to lawyers, entirely different people,
Right.
or accountants, or you
Right.
name it. But like construction people, like just salt of the earth, like they're building America, they're building the world we live in, the built world. They're our people. They're our people. I want to help them every way I can. And I'm
Totally.
not building
Totally.
what I think they need. They tell me everything I've built is what people in the field tell me they want.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's 100% the way to do it. So to close out the professional side, want to give you a plug for any career wins that you want to highlight.
Career wins. Well, I won the Veteran Fund $100,000 pitch contest. That was a big one.
That's one. Mm-hmm.
I last year I was part of Vets in Tech. Are you familiar with Vets in Tech?
No, I'm not.
So Vets in Tech is a program that helps veterans transition into technology.
Mm.
And so they help them either learn how to write code, create software, you name it. And they had a Vets in Tech pitch competition sponsored by JP Morgan. And I came in second place, which I jokingly
Awesome.
say is the first loser. But I'm still pretty proud of that for sure. That was helpful. I went all in on being the veteran, being a veteran, as we all should too. So I did
Mm-hmm.
Bunker Labs, has a veteran entrepreneur residence program. I did PenFed, the Pentagon Federal Credit Union has a veteran entrepreneur investment program I participated in. And last week I presented at Built World's Chicago 2024 Technology Conference, which I'm really proud of. So that was super exciting. And I wake up every day just grateful and proud that I can help our people in the field build better, faster, and go home to their families sooner.
That's amazing, man. You know, I want to highlight the bevy, the suite of veteran programs that exist. Most of those I wasn't aware of, and that, I'm saying that in a positive way, right? Like it's awesome to
Yeah.
hear how many programs are out there. So, you know, to our listeners, I'll try to link as many of those as possible, as well as Pixley.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, point being to our veteran listeners, use Google, right? Look out for different opportunities to present your business, to learn, trade, like you mentioned, Lee, in terms of that technology program for veterans. That's really cool.
Yeah, and support other veteran-owned businesses above and beyond anybody else. So, and I have a discount program for any veterans that want to use Pixley.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. All right, so moving into the final portion of the show, let's go with wellness practice. What does that look like for you?
That's really important. So every day, literally as soon as I wake up and I put my feet on the ground, I'm positive. So I thank God, I thank the universe, I thank Jesus, I thank the angels, I thank my spirit guides, I thank my ancestors for another day, another moment, another breath. And then I get up and I do 25 push-ups. Then I go make my coffee and I walk my dog. And then I come back and I get to work. But being an entrepreneur can be very stressful. So I either go to the gym and I lift weights, I surf, I do yoga, I swim, and I I'm kind of winding down the motorcycle stuff because I have a 3-year-old, but I love to ride my motorcycle when I can. But yeah, being fit and being active, you can't do anything else. If you can't take care of your mind and your body, you're not going to get far anywhere doing anything else. So you got to put that first.
Yeah,
And
well said, man.
family, you have to really prioritize family. So basically I'm militant with my time. I have my whole day mapped out from the time I get up until the time I shut off. I normally shut off at 5:30. I focus on my daughter for a couple hours, and I'm back at work like 10 to sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, but whatever it takes. But if I take breaks throughout the day and take care of myself, nothing will stop me.
Yeah, well said, man. I appreciate that gratitude practice right when you wake up. It's really important. I think it's a little bit underrated. I always try to push myself to do that more, but practicing gratitude could go a long way for yourself.
Yeah, I've had some near-death experiences in my life too, which give me an extra appreciation for another day on this earth. But yeah, every day's a gift. Tomorrow's not promised.
Yeah, well said, man. All right, last but not least, any favorite book or books you'd like to recommend to the audience?
Well, I need to read more books. But I'd say my favorite one most recently in the last year is Extreme Ownership. That's an excellent book because you have to own it. I have one co-founder and I have a small development team, but I am the CEO, the CMO, the customer success rep, the VP of sales. I do everything. So it is extreme ownership. And I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I just try and learn from them and improve upon it.
Yeah, man, I second that. That's one of my favorite books as well. I think it applies to just so much in life and allows you to just be an actionable person. Really good book. Great recommendation. All right, Lee, really appreciate you coming on the show, man. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm going to have all of your information in the show notes, links, Pixley links. I'll try to link those organizations that you mentioned that are supporting veterans.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. Great to meet you all.
Absolutely, man. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.